The Chamber of Mines has submitted an application for the review and setting aside of the reviewed broad-based Black Economic Empowerment Charter. The 2016 Charter is for the South African mining and mineral industry. The DMR Charter was published by the Minister of Mineral Resources on the 15th of June. Now, South Africa's poor growth outlook can be turned around if a specific focus is given to the underperforming education system, an overbulked public sector, and a lack of strategic flexibility within the private sector. These are the findings of the Economist Intelligence Unit. It believes that with the right planning and with the public and private sector working together, it will be possible to turn the country's fortunes around. For more on this, we cross back to Nompumelelo Siziba at the Johannesburg Stock Exchange.
Thanks very much, Nzinga. Yes, well, I'm joined by Ashad Abba. He's the Global Vice President of the Economist Intelligence Unit to give us his views on some of the findings that they've found. Thanks very much for joining us, Ashad.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Good stuff. Let's start with education. You know that there's been a lot of focus on the tertiary sector with the Fees Must Fall campaign and so on. But in terms of the work that you've done, what sort of recommendations or solutions do you have around the whole education value chain?
Okay, so when we look at education, our biggest concern relates to the quality of education in South Africa. If we look at students coming through the education system in South Africa, we see that after 6 years of primary education, 27% of pupils don't know how to read. If we look at the pass rates at matric level, starting up from when students started school, only 37% of the pupils actually pass matric. So I think that concerns us quite a bit. It's important for us, if we look at an economy, that the intellectual capital should drive the economic growth. And we need to spend time making sure that we improve both the quality of the education, but also the infrastructure to allow students, especially in previously disadvantaged communities, to be able to study both at school and at home.
Based on what you say, in the short to medium term, and with us now faced with a fourth industrial revolution, artificial intelligence and all of that, what does it mean for those people who've come through and haven't been so lucky, who won't get, you know, the kind of solutions that you're suggesting? Are there going to be people who can't really get any jobs going forward?
I think what we need to realize is in South Africa, that job creation will both come by being employed by large companies, but also having the ability to start up your own companies. And we need to drive innovation in South Africa. One of the challenges that we have is that the ease of doing business in South Africa, particularly starting up new businesses, is huge challenges and impediments to young entrepreneurs in South Africa. And we have a lot of these innovative young thinkers that want to take that route, but are unable to because we as a country create too many impediments to them getting there.
And then looking at the public sector, we know that South Africa has a very bloated public sector service. And we know that part of the rationale government has is that obviously we want to create jobs, but how sustainable that is, well, we're now seeing that it's not sustainable. It's now proving very difficult for government to afford even the public sector wage bill. So what are the solutions that you're coming up with in terms of making that more streamlined and more effective?
I think let's first look at the numbers. If we look at 2008 to 2014, employment in the public sector grew from about 14.5% up to 17.5%. That's a 20% growth, 6 times larger than the private sector. As you said, that is unsustainable. How do we move away from having government being one of the largest employers in the country? We need to look at more deliberate private-public partnerships. But also what we have seen coming out of a recent World Bank study is that the spend on research and development and innovation in South Africa has dropped by 40% over the last 5 or 6 years. So we need to encourage a lot more spend on research and development, but we also need to make sure that we drive deliberate public-private partnerships in terms of encouraging better employment in the private sector.
Okay. And then now, it just because we're running out of time, when you look at things like what happened yesterday, our president deciding to reshuffle the cabinet and so on and so forth, many market commentators saying that's negative, it doesn't show continuity and so on and so forth. What does that do, you know, to the narrative of South Africa?
I don't want to speculate on the cabinet reshuffles, but in a country like South Africa, having this impulsive movements and things happening in the market is not good. We need to create stability, and we need to show that that we have certainty in terms of how we drive forward in South Africa. If I look at, for example, a chat I had with our global MD, Stefan Canbeck, who wrote the last part of the paper as well, I think one of the points he said is that to sustainably grow in an economy, we need to show stability in both how we act and to be rational in our thinking.
Indeed.
Absolutely.
Indeed. And then very lastly, just give us a view of when you think South Africa will come out of its very low economic growth situation.
So I think South Africa will possibly need 4 to 5 years to come out of that. But a number of key factors that will need to drive that is one, innovation. The second one would be how do we drive forward public-private partnerships, and how do we encourage our youth to find new ways of working, because innovation has to be a key driver, and we need to make sure that as an economy, we want global companies to come and invest in South Africa. So we need to ease off how we do business, similar to what we've seen, for example, in Rwanda, where they've done quite well in terms of driving future investment.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your insights and your time. That was Ashad Abba. He's the Vice President, the Global Vice President of the Economist Intelligence Unit. We go back to Nzinga in studio.